Hi, this is Tim Gerard from Nerds That Geek here with Emil Acevedo, who does stop motion animation, and we're going to do a little interview with him today, see how he got started, kind of some like tricks of the trade. So when I get started, Emil, just tell us a little bit about yourself, sort of before you got into stop motion animation.
So first off, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to interview me, and to tell you a little bit about myself. Before I got started with stop motion, I was always a little bit of an athlete, played Little League Baseball, did a lot of karate and martial arts, but since I can remember, I've always played with Legos, so either I was in my house, in my room playing Legos, or I was outside playing football, and that's what life was like before stop motion. When I got into stop motion, I was 13 years old. A friend of mine was just kind of had this idea like, hey, let's make a stop motion. I was like, I have no idea what that is. So our first stop motion videos were actually done with Micro Machine toys. And since I had a bunch of Legos, we kind of delved into that, but mainly we did stuff with G.I. Joe. And it wasn't until about 2006 I started really using Lego as a medium for stop motion animation.
Cool. So what's some of the history of stop motion animation in general, and what's normally used besides Lego?
So the history of stop motion, it goes back for a while. They kind of figured out that if you just sequence images, you can create the illusion of animation. And they've done things for King Kong, and my biggest influence is probably Ray Harryhausen, who I've met, who did like Clash of the Titans and Sinbad, and what was the other one? The Jason the Argonauts. Just an amazing stop motion animator, and just real revolutionary with it. Really great guy. A lot of their mediums were just clay, things that were like clay, that a little plastic stuff, and that's kind of what they use now. You try to use something that you can't leave your fingerprints on. Ray Harryhausen talked about one of his woolly mammoths he made from an old coat, and you can see like the hair shifting from each frame because he had to touch it and move it. And so you just kind of learn from that, and you start using materials that you have as minimal impact on as you touch them, so that you don't really break that illusion of animation.
Very cool. Let's see. So what are some other, you mentioned a few movies in there, what are some other maybe modern films or TV shows that people might be familiar with that use stop animation, in case they haven't seen those few films?
Sure. So stop motion, there's a lot of stop motion films. You got Nightmare Before Christmas, you have Coraline, Kubo and the Two Strings, Paranorman. These are all done with stop motion. There's also stop motion that's been integrated into cinema, which we see in The Terminator, and we see in RoboCop, which I really like. I really like that animation a lot. And it's just kind of blended in there, and this is what filmmakers did before CGI, and a little while after, it's what you could afford. It was, at the time, it was cheaper, and now I'm sure it's probably cheaper to do it through CGI, but it's not as fun. So, and I think that stop motion still has a certain look to it that is very appealing. It says like, I put effort into making this video.
Yeah, it's way more hands-on, way more, it's actually there instead of just inside the computer.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So tell us some about the hardware and software that you use. Like, what did you use in the beginning? How has it evolved over time? And what are you using now?
So when we started, we used a Hi8 camcorder, and you just start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. And that basically turned out to be about 8 frames per second. Roughly. It's hard to tell. And so in order to watch it, we had to convert it to VHS, then we put it on VHS, and if we did sound, we had to like record it on a different tape with different audio, and we hold a microphone up and make sound effects. And it was a long process, but that's what we had. That was what was available to us when we were 13 and all the way till I was about 16. And then so what I use now is, when I started in my YouTube channel and stuff, I used a program called Monkey Jam, which is a free for PC software. It works great, but it doesn't do high definition. So you're very limited in your resolution, but it worked great. It worked with my camcorder. I streamed right to the computer, which is what you want, because you don't want to touch your camera. Any movement towards your camera can really break the illusion of animation. So if you can leave your camera still, that works best. But then also, as you get better, you start learning new software. You start building your skills. I started getting involved with After Effects and Photoshop. I learned how to mask out objects to make my subjects look like they're levitating. And then you start just getting better, higher in software. So the software I use now for motion or for image capturing is Stop Motion Pro. But I'm also looking into developing my own stop motion software, which will be a very like slimmed down, bare bones software that will do at least what I need a software to do, which is just capture the images, allow me to do onion skinning, allow me to like center my image and to preview it and run through it. And I think that's what a lot of animators want. There's a lot of stop motion software that has a lot of fluff to it, and I'm like, I do all that stuff in After Effects. I don't need it in my stop motion software. So I'm working on developing my own stop motion software and just utilizing it with After Effects.
What is onion skinning?
Onion skinning is when you're able to compare the shot that you're shooting to the previous shot. So you can make it in various degrees of transparency, so that way you can see how far your object has moved. So it allows you to see if you're being consistent with your movement. If your object or your subject moves a little bit and it's not where you need it to be, it allows you to see how you need to adjust it. It's a really helpful tool. So it's really stepped up my game as a stop motion animator, having that function added to my my programs. It's just huge. It's a huge asset to have.
Very cool. So what are some tips you learned along the way that you want to share with someone who wants to start doing this? Like things that you didn't necessarily think of at first, but then once you get into it, like, oh, this is a problem I'm having. I got to figure out how to fix this, you know?
First thing first, the whole camera moving thing. Find a way to keep your camera stationary if you can. I know a lot of beginning animators can't afford software that would stream from their camera, or even a camera that would stream. But if you have that ability, if you have a webcam, download Monkey Jam or whatever program there is for Mac, because I know that there are some. Download those so you don't touch your camera, and then just practice. Practice different frame rates. Practice your objects or your subjects moving different ways. You know, what does it look like to make your subject run with 4 or 5 different steps in that that motion is gait. Also, just practicing, working with your light, and just kind of thinking about, like for me, I did a lot of like, okay, this is what it looks like to move this way. So if I'm moving this way in this many seconds, how many seconds does it take to make a Lego move that way? And I just practiced that, and I just really tried to hone down the technique. And I tried different ways of making a Lego minifigure run, and I found out what worked for me, and so I stuck with that. But always, be open to new things and be open to exploring different ways and trying new things, and not just like being stuck in one way. Maybe a different way will work better for what you're trying to do in that particular project. So just kind of being open to explore, realizing that you're going to make mistakes, but you just keep practicing, and the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it. You'll learn how to light your scene better, you'll learn how to animate better, make it look smoother, and just to be an overall better filmmaker.
Okay, great. So now when you're kind of acquiring your Legos, do you always buy complete Lego sets? Do you buy in bulk, or do you buy specific parts depending on the project? And if so, where do you usually get them? Like at Target, the Lego store?
So I have a lot of Legos. I've always had a lot of Legos, but you can never have enough Legos. So when I think about what I want to film, I think about what kind of resources that it requires to build the set that I need. And so I've actually been utilizing Bricklink, and Bricklink is an online store where you can go and you can find sub-stores in Bricklink. So there's vendors who have their own stores, and they have like a catalog of their parts and colors and everything, and you can order from them. And it's great. It's an international thing. You can order from people all over the world, and I just find the pieces I need and I'll order in bulk. I ordered up to thousands, hundreds of pieces for depending on what I needed, and then I use Lego sets that I get. Sometimes there's a Lego set that I like, and I'm like, that's cool, I want to build that, so I'll buy it. And then sometimes I'll use it, or I'll take it apart, or I'll paint it, or something, and I'll change it up, and I'll use it in the film. And then Lego store is tricky. Sometimes they have the parts you need, and then sometimes you're like, okay, yeah, they have that part, and you drive all the way over there, and they don't sell that specific part anymore, and they're like, choose a brick thing, and then you just like, so you just go to Bricklink and you order it from there. So Lego store is kind of hit or miss.
So on your YouTube page, you have some tutorials. What are some of the topics that you discuss on those online tutorials?
So the tutorials on my YouTube page mainly will talk about certain effects that I do. One of them is like how to make your blood look realistic. Some of them are like how to make your gunshots look realistic. I'm actually working on an online course right now for stop motion animation, and in that it's going to be talking about how to do lighting, and how to set up your studio, and how to make your animation look smoother, how to utilize your software, how to make your objects look like they're floating. So it's going to be really kind of, I don't want to say basic, but it's very like fundamentals of stop motion, how to really build a good base for being a stop motion animator. So that's what my online course will be like. But on my YouTube channel, I try to focus on things more about the effects, like the practical effects that I use for stop motion animation. And a lot of it just involves violence. But not every animator wants to be violent. So my online course will be a very broad fundamental of stop motion animation.
What to do if you're not necessarily blowing the heads off zombies.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so what other materials, I see, it's not just Legos that you have. What other materials do you use besides Lego, like either for the backgrounds or as part of your sets?
So a lot of Lego animators will use the Lego base plate for their films. I don't like that because I feel like it restricts the movement that your Lego can make, in which way they can walk or run. I like to use like a flat surface, and for some of my films I just use the neoprene, the whiteboard that I have, as the floor. So if it's like in a shopping mart or something, I have a white floor. If it's in a let's say like a parking lot, I'll use a gray poster board like this to kind of show that this is asphalt. So I like to use that because I feel like it's more, it gives you more room for your Lego to move in any direction that you want. So I like to use just some kind of flat background or base, like, but for backgrounds I like to use like backdrops, so either be a green screen or black backdrop here, or I'll have some kind of blue backdrop for like a sky or something. I like to use that a lot. If it's I'm working on a jungle scene now, so I bought a bunch of like fake foliage from Michael's, and I'll just use that too, because I don't want to just spend a bunch of money on Lego trees for backgrounds. And then the other thing too is I got bananas, and I'll use bananas, and I made a movie with them, and I used clay for their gloves. I use clay a lot. I also, for blood effects, I'll use food coloring or jam, and I just try to use what I think would work. I have the scene will require a fence, and what I did is I have some kind of mesh wiring, and I just cut it to look like a chain link fence, because I think you can't really mimic that with Lego. Lego doesn't really have a chain link fence, but I needed something like that, so I cut this molding wire to look like a chain link fence for that. So
cool. So you're basically doing like whatever kind of serves your vision, not staying sort of limited by what you can only do with Lego.
Yeah, basically, I want the characters to be Lego, but they're not living exclusively in a Lego world. I want their buildings to be Lego, their things that they operate to be Lego, but the environment can be whatever I need. So,
Very cool. So, what are the projects on your page now that you're most proud of?
I love banana boxing. It's not nearly doing as well as I hoped it would, but banana boxing I love. Also, I love Lego Zombie Movie. That one's huge. The first Apocalypse Lego, I love that one. But out of what I've completed so far, I would say that probably the third, the Frozen Terror movie, is my favorite, because I just feel like there was a lot to it, and I achieved a lot with that from what I had. And I did a lot with lighting effects. I did a lot with After Effects. That was really my first time playing with After Effects on my own without someone helping me. And then also my Bob Ross movie, my little video. I love the Bob Ross one, and just a lot of projects that I wanted to do. I just think that what I have out it's like, okay, I've done that. Like, that's what I wanted to do, and I did it. And sometimes it doesn't turn out the way I wanted to. Like, it doesn't look the way I imagined. But I'm still like, okay, I got that out there. I did that. Like, I took the time, and I created that, and I put it out there. So.
All right. So before we finish, what are some of your upcoming projects that you want to tell everybody about?
So my big one is the 6th installment for the Frozen Terror series, which is kind of what this set is here. It's got other stuff on it, but the Frozen Terror 6 is going to be the biggest Lego stop motion movie on the internet for a long time. It's going to be very action packed. It's going to be almost like a video game, following a character in a third person perspective through a combat situation. There's going to be aerial battles in the background, as well as when the start of the movie, when the troops are flying in. There's going to be just a lot of special effects. There's going to be a lot of practical effects and a lot of action, and it's going to tell a good story. It's going to continue the story in the way that I want it to. It's a big endeavor, but I am taking it on. I'm building a lot of special things for it, like a specialized backdrop for it. I'm buying a lot of special parts for it. I've created special parts for it, and I'm trying to get things rolling so I can finish it and work on it and get it the way that I want it to look. Because I'm not going to put it out there unless it looks the way I want it to look. And so this is something I'm really putting a lot of effort into. When I'm done with this, I want to work on a comic book movie, which I tend to try to stay away from franchises because I like to work on the merits of my own imagination. But sometimes I just got to cross that line, like my Harry Potter movie. Like I had to make that movie. But this one is going to be when, in the comics, when Tony Stark as Iron Man takes over S.H.I.E.L.D. and he has the Superhuman Registration Act, and Thor doesn't like it, and he comes down and smacks down on Iron Man. So I want to make that into a movie, just a short little video. But then I'm also working on a Choose Your Own Adventure Lego Murder Mystery video, which will have different avenues you can take at the end of the video. We'll have different cards that can give you different options to go, and it's going to be a really big movie. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I think a lot of people will enjoy it and just kind of playing through it as, just replaying through it as they go. And so I'm looking forward to doing that.
Yeah, that's very cool. I've never heard of anything like that done before. It's always been in books or games, video games, but to have a video series that's all animated for you, that's really cool.
Yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about it. My dad's a writer. He's going to help me write the script. It's going to be like 1920s kind of era. Just, depending on what you choose, your character is going to get killed, or you could save other characters. There's going to be a really good outcome and a really bad outcome and everything in between. So it's up to you to decide what you're going to choose. So
cool. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk and get some of this cool information out there. And so this is Emil Acevedo and Tim Gerard with Nerds at Geek. Thanks for watching.